So 50k. Some of you OGs may know that the last time I actually did one of these like AMAs, Q&As or whatever you want to call it was back when I had 1,000 subscribers. And not even on this channel. No, the last time I did an AMA was back when I had 1,000 subscribers on my previous channel. So some of you out of the loop may be questioning like, wait, there is a previous channel? But yeah, you know, the entire context is on this video, so I don't want to go into it now. But yeah, basically it has been a really long time since I did one of these like viewer Q&As. So let's just jump right into it, huh? I just want to disclaim a little bit. There is like 800-ish comments split between Twitter and YouTube. So of course I'm not gonna be able to hit every single question in this video. I'm just gonna pick out like the most interesting ones or the questions that I actually want to answer. First off, I guess I should answer the most asked question, which is some variation of how are you or how has your day been. I personally feel really happy and lucky to have so many viewers who are concerned for my own well-being, whether that being physical or mental. We had quite a bit of drama that happened this year, technically, also in the last few years as well. You know, people understandably are going to be concerned for my thoughts on everything, right? But guys, you know what? It's fine. I'm doing fine. I'm happy. I'm bouncing back. I don't feel depressed anymore. You know, it's one of those cases where it's like things happened already. Try and fix it, of course. And after that, once you have tried your best to fix it, just let it be. So yes, you know, live and learn from mistakes. Sometimes it's not even a mistake. Please Google, please tell me what's going on. But other than that, things are going smoothly both on the mental side as well as the whole career side. So thank you guys for your concern. How to safely shave my balls. If that's your sponsor, then you're welcome. I wish that they would sponsor me. So reach out. Fried chicken burgers in Singapore round to review on YouTube when? The next round would not be on fried chickens anymore. I will not elaborate. What are your favorite songs to use for testing headphones, and do you have a preference for genre or characteristics? I myself have actually written an entire article on my musical choices and my philosophies on what music to choose. TLDR is the whole familiarity trumps technicality. In layman's terms, it just means use the music that you're more familiar with as opposed to the music that you think is more technical for the job. But in terms of my favorite songs for testing headphones, I always like to default back to the Hell Freezes Over version of Hotel California. Very well mastered, very well recorded. All in all, it's almost a perfect testing track. At least in my opinion. You usually talk about headphones and IEMs. What is your opinion on speakers? I use speakers. I daily drive speakers. I respect speakers, but obviously I can't use them everywhere. So in most cases, I use speakers on my desk and I use IEMs outdoors. In fact, it's to the point where I don't really have a use case for headphones anymore, because anytime that I feel like I should be using a headphone, I realize like I could be just using speakers instead. Is the Headphone X Crinacle collab in the near future or still far away? I want to say near future, I really do, but in a lot of these cases, it's really not up to me. There's a lot of things that can go wrong behind the scenes, R&D processes, so-called whatever. If I make a promise and say things like this year, and you know, I cannot keep that promise, people are just gonna be disappointed. So the way that I like to do these things is, if it happens, it happens. Or when it happens, it happens. Who are your favorite reviewers and why? I'm not gonna answer on the audio side of this. I'm gonna list out the reviewers from the other industries that I really respect. For example, there's the obvious Gamers Nexus for the PC components business. I think he is someone that I strive to be, at least on the ethics front, as well as on the how thorough you can be in testing. On a similar vein, in terms of the technical side of video games, I really respect Digital Foundry as well. Of course, they're not entertaining. They're not supposed to be entertaining. They're very much informative, but again, just people that I look up to. But in terms of entertainment value, like in terms of the reviewers that inspire my style of doing these kinds of videos, I would like to say Jobby the Hong. I don't like figurines, but he just makes the videos so entertaining, and he's someone that I look up to on the videography front. And just a special mention to Ranton. He has been inactive for quite a while, but I really love his chaotic video editing. I would never be able to emulate the things that he do, and I probably would not do it as well as him. But yeah, love his style, but not necessarily an inspiration. What is your favorite Pokemon? Mega Gengar. Any possibility of collabing with the likes of Sony for an IEM? In this case, I am not the one making the decision. I would absolutely love to work with Sony on anything, but you know, at this point, it's not necessarily that I'm the one rejecting them, it's they're the one rejecting me. Do you use in-ear monitors? What are those? Do you have any guilty pleasure headphones / IEMs that you rated low but can't do without? I wouldn't necessarily say can't do without, but there are a few guilty pleasure ones, like for example the AudioQuest Nighthawk. On the IEM side, probably be something that's really thick and bloated sounding, like maybe the new Empire Ears Evo X. Like, I know I'm not supposed to be liking it, but it tickles that primal bass hit side in my brain, you know? What is something every newcomer should know about audiophiles? Probably the fact that a lot of audiophiles may not necessarily know what they're talking about, or may have an overinflated sense of what they might or might not know. I think the prime example of this is when we hear an audiophile talk about how much a cable would improve the sound, or you know, how much burn-in would help the headphone fix itself, etc. In those cases, it's very clear that these people who perpetuate these snake oil myths clearly don't know what they're talking about, but they do it with such confidence, which is such chutzpah that people just believe them. So yeah, don't fall into too many snake oil myths because of a few overzealous people. Really do research and then maybe see what you might or might not believe. Where are you going to put your second silver play button? You know, I'll probably would like to say that it's somewhere here, like this area below the light switch. I've prepared it. I've prepared the spot at this point. If you had to listen to only one album for the rest of your life, what album would it be? I've been very open about this for many years. My favorite album has always been The Primary and the Messengers LP, the only album, or one of the only albums, that I would listen front to back with minimal skips. Absolutely love it, but obviously, if you give me a choice, I would like to listen to other music as well. Curly fries or regular fries? Shoestring fries. I will die on this hill. How has your journey into the keyboard rabbit hole been? There have been a lot of keyboard YouTubers who have reached out to me. For example, Bad Sit Tech, Shoobs, Switch and Click. In general, I have been looking into a lot more keyboard stuff than I previously would have. For example, I started out with the glorious GMM-K non-pro with Kale box white switches. And then now, currently, I have this, which is the Arco Mod 007 with Holy Boba switches and keycaps I don't really know. I've always liked a clackier sound. Now with this new keyboard, I've gone more into a thockier sound. But really, what I would prefer is not clack or a thock. It would be a chalk. I've also gotten somewhat close with the folks back at Mecca.store in Singapore, a physical store selling a lot of enthusiast level keyboards. Shout out to them as well. Do you still feel joy hitting 50k for the second time? You know, at this point, I feel like hitting 50k is no longer an achievement, but rather an expectation. So not necessarily as excited as I would have been, you know, when hitting 50k on my first channel. But yes, I still feel joy. Of course, I love seeing the numbers tick up. So yeah, I'm still happy. Of course I'm still happy. What is the most colossal mistake you have made in your career, and how did you learn from it? I wouldn't want to just limit it to my career. I feel like this can extend all the way down to my education. I feel like the worst 2 years of my life was studying in junior college. For those who aren't aware, junior college is kind of that step before university, kind of like high school in United States. I hated almost every waking moment of the 2 years that I spent in junior college. I wish that I never gotten into junior college. I probably would have done much better in like a polytechnic or something. So that, I feel like, could have been my greatest mistake that pretty much overshadowed anything that had happened in the last few years in my very short career. But as we all know, hindsight is 2020, whatever. If I had a time machine and go back in time, whatever, I could have changed it, but at the same time, would I have been doing this reviewing gig if I didn't do junior college? Why would you hit 50k people? What did they do to you? I don't know, man. Just fuck people in general. I hate going outside. Yeah, people suck. What music do you listen to in your leisure time? I love anything that falls within the bracket of like soul, groove, blues, funk, R&B, anything similar, disco even. I love those kinds of genres. A mishmash of those would tickle my personal tastes very easily. An example in today's pop culture would probably be something like Silk Sonic. I love the style that they do. Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak together. Perfect. Where do you stand politically? And the follow-up, and why is it the center? The way that I see it personally is that when you have two opposing philosophies in any kind of field, you would have negative and positive aspects on the extremes of both sides. So it doesn't really make sense for me to engage purely on one side or the other when you can clearly criticize both sides as well as find good points in both sides as well. So in my opinion, why not just take the best points on both sides? What's the point in shoehorning yourself in any one direction, right? Is there any story or inspiration for the last words in your every video? Don't die, fuck off. No, I just did it in one video and then I realized that, hey, this is a pretty good outro. I should do it on every video. And then I did. For the listener, what are the main benefits and drawbacks of different driver types? I think the most condensed version of this answer that I can give would be that dynamic drivers tend to sound the best, but are the hardest to tune because you basically only have one driver and you have to modify the parameters of that singular driver from ground up all the way up to production. With BA drivers, can think of them as kind of like Lego blocks where you can just take like a very different kinds of BAs, mash them up together, and you can adjust each BA individually, so you're kind of like shaping the FR curve that you want with a certain amount of BAs. So in this regard, BAs are easier to tune than something like dynamic drivers. In terms of planar magnetics in headphones, for example, you could probably talk about how they perform slightly better on more compromised seals because they have a lower resonant frequency of the diaphragm. If you don't understand what I mean, you know, it's a whole thing. So in all honesty, I can go on and on about this topic. I don't want to because this topic isn't talking about that. But yeah, there are, even just purely from an engineering standpoint, very massive differences in different transducer types. Who introduced you or taught you about the audiophile hobby? And if you could ask them one thing right now, what would it be? In terms of introductions, I don't think anyone necessarily introduced me to the hobby. I started out wanting better headphones, and just doing research online was enough for me to go deep into the rabbit hole. I was like, I should buy this headphone, but then someone said that headphone is better, and then repeat ad infinitum until the point where I decided to buy an Audio-Technica M50. In terms of taught me about the audiophile hobby, no one really taught me anything, or at least not from a personal mentorship standpoint. But in terms of my biggest influence, most people would know it would be Tal Hurston's of Inner Fidelity, which was why I named my website In Ear Fidelity out of respect and as an homage to his greatness. Now, if you're here right now, I'll probably ask him like, how did you do it, man? Like, you wouldn't understand that back then, regardless of how people view him right now, like, people respect him like a god today. But even back then, with all of that respect, people still drilled into him, called him a fraud, called him a lot of things. And I just wanted to ask, like, how did you handle all of these, like, just vitriol throughout your career, despite knowing that you are 100% right? Because sometimes you cannot convince people to not hate on you, right? So yeah, Tal Hurston's, let me know his secrets, or maybe he just didn't. Maybe the whole reason why he left was because, you know what, fuck it, I've had enough. I'm just going to go down on a caravan and just fuck off from society. Maybe I should do that. For someone who has been in the hobby for a while, what are some of the pitfalls you'd recommend to avoid to someone who's just starting out figuring out their tastes? I guess it's just a case of trying not to be influenced by what other people may think of your purchase decision or may think of your preferences. I've seen some people who absolutely love and emphasize bass and tell me like, I like bass, but people keep telling me to buy something neutral. And at that point, I'm like, just buy something bassy. You like bass, just buy it. Like, who cares about all of these snobs who want something balanced and neutral, right? I myself am a bass head, right? Fuck them. just fuck them. I think there are only 3 or 4 IEMs on your ranked list that you've given an F. What separates F tier from E tier? I think the litmus test for F tier is that something needs to sound like genuinely broken. A lot of E tier stuff just sounds horrible. Like, they're terrible, no doubt about that. I put them on and I just take them off after 3 or 4 seconds, and I know it's like, this is. But for F tier, I feel like there's like a bit of confusion. When I put it on, it sounds terrible, horrible, of course. But then I start to think like, is this headphone broken? And the moment I think that, and it's not broken, F tier. Why do you think headphones are struggling to compete in the same low and mid-fi spaces as IEMs? I think it just might be the whole, like, China being the whole center of production. So since Asia in general, China in general love IEMs, it makes sense that a lot of Chinese firms want to focus a lot on IEMs, and what that happens is that they created a boom in the IEM space. This boom didn't exactly translate over to headphones because a lot of Chinese people and a lot of Asians don't necessarily use headphones as opposed to be using IEMs. So a lot of the progress that you see on IEMs, well, you don't see in headphones because you see a lot of headphones are being dominated by Western brands instead of Chinese brands. So it's not necessarily that they're struggling to compete. It's more like the fact that there is not enough competition in the headphone space. So a lot of the existing established reputable default recommendations tend to come from the same few brands, the same few models from that has been here for the last few decades or so. Whereas if you see on the IEM space, nearly everything that has been the default recommendations has probably come out in the last like 2 or 3 years. It is an insane industry. I was curious as to what you were doing before in-ear fidelity became your main gig. I was in university, I was studying, and then I was doing in-ear fidelity at the same time. So once I graduated, I basically kicked the ground running and I decided, you know what, since I graduated in the middle of the whole pandemic thing, guess this is my job now. Do you think you have enough experience in other product categories to review them as thoroughly as you do audio products? And if so, what are they? I'm usually very insecure when it comes to things that I think that I'm knowledgeable in. So I don't want to touch on keyboards, I don't touch on speakers, I don't touch on things like monitors or, you know, anything else that I feel like I wouldn't be as good as relative to my knowledge on headphones. But if there is one thing that I feel like I can do well, maybe food reviews. Just how hard is it to maintain such a perfect haircut? I'm not sure if this comment is sarcasm because my haircuts are like $2. I'm being absolutely serious. My cut's like $2. I just go down to my local hair salon and tell them like, hey guys, the usual high slope trim the top. That's about it. Which reminds me, it's actually kind of time for me to cut my hair as well. What is your favorite part about being a reviewer? Probably the fact that since this is my hobby as well, that I don't necessarily have to spend any money or not much at all on this hobby. So for example, if I'm interested in something, I could probably just go up to the manufacturer and say like, hey, you know, this thing seems quite interesting. Could I maybe test it out? And they'll just send it to me. So I think that's the favorite part, is that I literally do not have to spend much on this hobby at all, which is fucking amazing, honestly. How do you keep your IEMs or ears clean so you don't get ear infections or get clogged up with earwax? Just clean your ears in the shower. I have alcohol wipes on the side of my table so I can clean ear tips as well. Basically, a lot of things when it comes to your ears, just do it in the shower while you're showering. Dry it off, you know, just be consistent, be thorough and consistent so that you don't have to have like weeks or even months of build-up and things just start getting worse, right? Do you have any inspirations in comedy? I feel a soft yet acid humor in your videos sometime. Acid? I don't know about that. Initially, I wanted this channel to be a lot more deadpan. If you look at my old channel and the older videos on my old channel, you would see that I attempted that. Like a really deadpan style of humor. But then I realized like in order to do that kind of deadpan style of humor, I had to do a lot of scripting because that kind of humor didn't come as natural to me. So at a certain point, I just shifted towards a much more natural style, which was just me just coming up with things on the spot, just like, oh, I'm going to roast this thing now. I'm just going to try different ways to roast something, right? In terms of inspirations, I do take a lot of inspirations from YouTube in general. Like there's a few YouTubers that I genuinely enjoy in my own personal time, but I don't necessarily take a lot of inspiration from them. It's just things that I feel like I could come up at that point in time, if it makes sense. Crin, what is your personal vendetta against tubes? You never even acknowledge their existence. It's not a personal vendetta. I just do not care. When you are used to cheap and garbage sounding headphones, is the familiarity bias too strong to gain any benefit from high quality headphones? I feel like this is a genuine problem because we have quite a few newbies that come up to me and say like, hey, you know, I just bought something from your recommendations and I felt like I didn't like it because my old headphones had more bass or something similar. You know, they felt like their old headphones had something that this new and approved headphones do not have. So it does take a while to readjust, and I am a big proponent of the whole like mental burning thing. You can get used to a pair of bad headphones in the same way that you could start liking a pair of headphones that do not necessarily conform to your own personal preferences. But in a lot of cases, when I see these comments, it's usually after a while they will come back and say like, hey, you know, I used these new headphones for a while, and then now that I switched back to my old headphones, I realized the old headphones were completely garbage. So yeah, this whole thing does go both ways. It's quite an interesting phenomenon. It's on the whole psychoacoustics thing. Did you have any career ideas in your pre-reviewer days? In all honesty, not much. Like at one point I wanted to be a doctor. I did not have the grades for that. At another point I felt like I could become a lawyer. I did not have the discipline for that. And then at some point I decided, you know what, I could probably just be a normal, boring accountant. And I didn't do that. But I've been doing this whole thing for a very, very long time. So even back then, I was still thinking about, hey, wouldn't it be nice if I did like headphone reviews for a living? That would be the dream. Besides audio, do you have anything you do on the side? Any hobbies? I do have a few hobbies here. You can see gaming, the keyboard things, if you want to call that a hobby as well. Food. I just like to go out, you know, try out random restaurants, new cuisines, and you know, just try out around, you know, just eat. I fucking love eating, dude. I do cook as well. I experiment a lot. I love to cook a variety of meals. Nowadays I'm trying my hand at much more French oriented recipes. But yeah. What do you think are some cases of snake oil in your audiophile community? I think the most obvious one would be like those like stones that you put on top of things that apparently make them sound better. Cable risers, cables in general. A lot of things are snake oil. You know, I could go on and on about the things that people like to believe makes their setup sound so much better than it actually is, but you know, doesn't have any basis in reality whatsoever. In Singapore, we have this company that makes what I would affectionately call the tennis balls. Basically these like orange foam ball things. I don't even know what they're made of, where you just attach them to your cables and then they make them sound better. Yeah, it's as crazy as it sounds. What question do you want us to ask you? This question. When you wipe, do you crumple or fold the toilet paper? Of all colors of the rainbow, which would you beat in a fight and why? Honestly, I think red might be a little bit too strong for me, but I think I could probably punch the shit out of blue. How is it going in the video editing right? What's your favorite fruit? I love durian. Oh, I like an in-season durian. Mao Shan Wang. King. Absolute undisputed king. Can you post a graph showing the growth in the number of subscribers? You could probably see it on Social Blade as well, but here's the graph that is on my YouTube Studio account. Have you noticed the large overlap between the audiophile community and custom keyboard community, and why do you think it exists? I mean, the fact that I've gotten so many custom keyboard questions on this AMA is pretty telling of the overlap, right? As to why it exists, probably the fact that both of our communities are pretty obsessed with the concept of sound. Like, of course, us audiophiles, you know, are really obsessed with how the speakers play back and all that. But then we have the keyboard nerds that also care a lot about how their keyboard sounds. So yeah, overlap. What is that bottle behind your right speaker? Now, this interesting thing that you pointed out here, this is isopropyl alcohol, just something that I like to clean my desk with on occasion. Most successful collab, profitability, I mean, that it's the dusk. By dusk. Why don't you pay Timmy? Timmy doesn't deserve money. Timmy survives on exposure. Do you want to reach 50k a third time? Oh God, no. Please, God, no. What is your real name? If you look on my government ID, it literally says crinacle. True story. Who is Joe? These nuts. What's wrong with you? In all honesty, a lot of things are wrong with me, but you make do with what's wrong so that you may do what's right. What's your favorite food? Ribeye cap. A well-marbled ribeye cap seared on a cast iron pan, medium rare, salt and pepper. That's it. Perfect. I hope I have covered enough questions to satiate you hungry subscribers. Again, thank you all for the 50,000 subscribers. What a milestone. Hopefully we can get back to that elusive, coveted 100k in time. And of course, for those big money boys who have subscribed to my $20 tier on my Patreon, here are all of your glorious names. And for those who have subscribed to my $30 tier, allow me to speak your beautiful names: McMadface, Dennis, Jerry, HK57, Moneyboy, Fisk, Ozzy Vargas, Lorem Ipsum, Nooft, TJ Daly, Mr. Overlord 12, Charlie Rowe 222, and Rodrigo. Thank you all. I know some of you may be offended by this non-audio content, but rest assured we are now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So, see you next week. Don't die. Fuck off.